Your business passes its cyber insurance renewal every year. Your policies are written. Your IT vendor sent an attestation last spring. You're compliant. Then one Monday, a client's data shows up where it shouldn't be, or a new prospect sends a 60-question security questionnaire your team can only answer 20. Or your insurance carrier flags something in your renewal that wasn't a problem last year. And the question stops being, are we compliant? And it starts being, were we ever?
Most businesses don't know there's a difference until that Monday.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Matrix Podcast. I'm Andy Harrower.
And I'm Melissa Glatone.
This is episode 2. Today we're talking about a trap almost every business walks into around compliance. And we're not just talking about regulated industries like DoD or finance or something like that. If you have sensitive client data, and you probably do, a cyber insurance policy or a B2B contract that includes security language, this episode is for you. Melissa, compliance is one of those words where everyone nods knowingly and, yeah, we've done a lot of work around this. And no one really seems to mean the same thing by it. Compliance means a lot of things to a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Right.
So let me set the frame, and then you tell me how this lands when you sit with a new client. There are 2 failure modes I see in almost every commercial business when it comes to compliance. Most have both, almost none realize it. Failure 1, over-documentation. We've seen plenty of this. You have a written information security policy, it's 14 pages, it's signed, and it sits in a SharePoint folder.
Right, and it's been written by someone that's never even logged into your network.
Yeah, exactly. It was written either to satisfy a checklist, a cyber insurance application, a client questionnaire, a contract requirement, something like that, or by a consultant who copied a template.
Exactly. So here's what I see when I open one of these is the policy says that you do quarterly access reviews.
Right.
You don't.
No.
It says you have an incident response plan. You might have a 2-year-old template, and it says that you have privileged accounts and are reviewed monthly, and they aren't.
No, the policy describes a business that doesn't really exist.
And the reason this happens is structural. Documents are easier to write than systems are to change. So businesses write the document and assume the system will follow it, but it doesn't.
Right. Failure 2 is under-implementation. The gap between what the policy says and what's actually running on your machines.
Right. Examples I see every week, MFA is on an email, but not on the CRM. Backups exist, but no one's tested or restored in 18 months.
Right.
Vendors' due diligence is a folder with 3 PDFs, right, from maybe 2022 or older. The endpoint protection, that console has 400 alerts. Maybe nobody's even looked at it.
And the reality check is just brutal. Pick any control in your written policy. Walk to the system it describes, verify it exists, it's working, and someone has reviewed it in the last 90 days, but I'd sell it for 6 months.
Right. And about half the controls in most companies' policies aren't actually running the way the policy says, right? Some aren't running at all, and the business has no idea.
Yeah. This is the harder part. every year you stay still on compliance, you lose ground. The expectations keep moving, and they keep moving up. The bar for reasonable security in 2026 is not what it was in 2020. And the bar no longer is set just by regulators. It's set by clients, cybersecurity, insurance, plans.
Right.
You know, the fewer controls you have, the more expensive the plan is going to be, and the less it will cover. So the bar just gets higher and higher and higher.
And for most businesses, the clients are the toughest auditor, right? For a Fortune 500 customer, they might send a security questionnaire that's harder than anything a state regulator has ever sent to you.
Yes. So those are the two real failure modes. What do compliance reviewers, insurance underwriters, and client auditors actually test? These are the big five controls that get tested. We went through a DoD compliance audit 2 weeks ago that our client had spent the better part of a year preparing for. These five are all on there. So you better believe that if your cybersecurity guys do not require it now, that they will. And I've sat in on enough cyber insurance renewals, client vendor reviews, and contract security audits to tell you with confidence that there are five of these controls that come up every single time across verticals, across regulatory regimes. If you have these implemented, not just documented,
Right.
but that's sort of the big A/B switch there. You'll pass almost any review. If you don't, you won't. And it doesn't matter what the policy says. So control one, MFA, multi-factor authentication. You know, you put in your username and your password, you get a text, you use an app on your phone to provide multi-factor authentication. And it's not just email, it's your CRM, accounting system, your file shares, your VPN, any cloud tool that holds client or employee data.
Right. And so the bar for 2026 is no longer like push notifications, right? Most cyber insurance carriers now want phishing resistant MFAs. So FIDO2 keys, maybe some hardware tokens or platform authenticators on at least your administrative accounts.
Yeah, that's a requirement for admin accounts almost. In Office 365, Microsoft has turned that on for administrators. There's not an option. It has to be MFA. So, but by way of a quick diagnostic, pick 3 systems that hold sensitive data in your organization. Try logging in from a new device. If you get in with just a password, that's a finding. It's something you're going to have to do something about.
So control 2, documented and reviewed access controls. So who has access to what, and when was the last time it was reviewed?
Right. What auditors and underwriters want to see is a list with names, dated within the last 90 days, with a documented review cycle. Not, we do this regularly. It's like actual evidence. So like a log file that says, 3 months ago, Melissa looked at this folder that has employee information and verified the permissions on it.
Right.
So, yeah, that's...
And the most common gap would be like former employees, lateral hires from other companies who got over provisioned from day one, right? Or an outside contractor who never got removed from the project folder, right? You'd be surprised at how often this happens.
And it happens everywhere. I mean, it happens at Matrix from time to time. Usually on the front end provisioning, where someone just says, well, they're an IT engineer. They can just be an admin. That's not the way you want to do this. So it happens everywhere. What's important is we review it and find those problems. Control 3, real endpoint protection. EDR, not antivirus. Antivirus from 2015 is not endpoint protection. Modern threats need modern tooling. Endpoint detection and response, EDR, with 24/7 monitoring, response playbooks, and a real human watching the alerts.
Right. And most businesses fail and don't know it. They have antivirus, but they don't have the EDR. They don't have anyone watching the alerts, and the console is like a graveyard.
Yeah, yeah, and and it can happen fast. So if to check and see if this is occurring at your practice, ask your IT person to show you the last 30 days of alerts from your endpoint tool. If they can't, or there's nothing being like acted on, you have a control on paper that is not running on your systems.
So, control 4, backups and tested recovery. Having backups isn't a control, but testing it is.
Yeah, what underwriters or auditors really want to see is a documented backup process and followed by a recovery test. Not so much. The standard used to be, well, we've restored a couple of files, and so the backup works, declare victory, go home. Now it's like, no, you need to spin up those virtual machines that you back up. They need to be brought online to make sure they successfully boot and you can log in. It can't be just we pull a couple of files.
Right. And here's the trap, right? Most modern ransomware specifically target the backup credentials first. Now, if your backup admin's account is reused or unprotected, your backups can be encrypted alongside everything else. So immutable backups are now the bar.
That's true, but it's immutable.
What did I say?
It just means that they can't be changed, right?
Right.
Because when they get changed, that's when the bad guys encrypt your backups.
Okay.
If they're immutable, then they can't be changed. There's a lot of lingo in there, but that's the big thing, because what has happened again and again and again is not only are all the systems encrypted, your backups are encrypted. You can recover nothing unless you've stuck a USB drive, backed up to that, and taken it off site. But not a lot of people do that anymore. They're supposed to be backed up over into the cloud, but so control 5. So control 4 is backups, and that's super important, right? Control 5, vendor due diligence. So every cloud vendor that touches your data needs a file, and that file could contain their SOC 2 report, which is a measure of how secure they are, privacy notices, data processing agreements, if you have them, especially with third parties, and they need to be date stamped and reviewed.
Right. So what businesses get wrong is that they have the files for the big vendors,
Right.
and they don't have the files for the smaller ones, like the e-signature tool, maybe the meeting scheduler, various automation apps someone added 6 years ago.
Yeah, in fact, we had, not Matrix, but there was a huge breach from a Salesforce plugin 2 weeks ago called Clue. I don't know, maybe 1,000 people in the world have heard about Clue, but a lot of companies use it. And they had a breach that extended into the Salesforce infrastructure. So, those things, this is not just stuff that's happens to other people anymore. It happens to anyone, because using that plugin, it was like a customer intelligence plugin. It's super useful. It's easy. I'll just, and they have a thing. So, the reasonable test, if a customer asked you tomorrow, who has access to our data? Could you produce the answer in an hour? Because you should be able to. There's a word that comes up in nearly every framework, every compliance framework, and that word is reasonable. And the FTC uses it, state data privacy laws use it, cyber insurers use that, most business contracts use it, and the big cybersecurity framework, CMMC for DoD, FTC safeguard rule, they all use reasonable. What does that mean?
Well, short answer, reasonable isn't really a fixed bar. It moves with the threat landscape and what's commercially available and what maybe your peers are doing.
Right. So the translation there is that what was reasonable in 2019 is lagging in 2026. The 5 controls I just listed, those are baselines now. It's table stakes. 5 years ago, they were above and beyond. You were sitting pretty when your clients could answer those 5 questions. But this whole thing just keeps going up.
So who's setting the bar? There's roughly 4 forces. And the way that they affect you, first, your cyber insurance carrier, right? Their renewal application is a de facto, audit for most SMBs.
Yeah.
If they're asking you, though, about a control, that control is now expected.
Yeah, because frequently people just use last year's answers for this year's audit, and then they'll notice, oh, wait a minute, there's like a half a dozen questions that weren't there last year. Well, they're there for a reason. And that reason is your insurance is going to be more expensive if you don't address it. Yeah. So, second force going to be your customers. If you do any B2B work, especially in larger companies, healthcare, financial services, stuff like that, or government. That's a pretty big business.
That's a big one.
Yeah. They're sending security questionnaires that are, in many cases, harder than if you had just like a regulator asking you questions about that kind of stuff.
Right. And third would be maybe the state law. Patchwork is getting denser. Virginia, where we are, California, Colorado, Connecticut, I think Texas, Utah, they all have data privacy laws now. And with breach notification clocks and reasonable security standards, if you have customers in those states, you're subject to those laws.
Yeah, and that can sting too. You get breached, the notification costs just by themselves could be massive if you have a lot of people that are impacted. And then the state will usually want to see you suffer some, so they will fine you. So, the fourth force, federal regulators. The FTC has been a lot more active on reasonable security enforcement. If you're a financial institution under the FTC safeguards rule, and that means that's usually most CPAs, accounting firms, stuff like that, people that have access to taxpayer information. And the definition is broader than you think. It includes not just those, but also auto dealers, accountants, which we talked about, mortgage brokers, and a lot of others. That rule applies to you. So what does that mean? You don't have to track every regulation. You have to maintain the 5 controls and document them well enough that you can answer any reasonable question quickly. The 5 controls are the universal denominator. However, there are a lot more controls in these frameworks. The base DoD framework has like 110. The CMMC that everybody's talking about now has over 200. So those base 5 controls, if you're dealing with low-level compliance, puts you in pretty good shape. But when you're dealing with an actual framework, there are way more than 5. But those are the first 5 to start with.
Right. And also make sure you read your customer contracts. Most have security language in them. Most businesses have never reread theirs.
Yeah.
The contracts often impose like obligations stricter than any laws that you're subject to.
Yeah. Okay, if those are the controls and that's the bar, here's what to do about it. A 90-day plan. So we want this to be tactical. We want it to be tight, okay? This plan assumes nothing. It doesn't cost hardly anything to execute. And by the end of 90 days, you'll be measurably more defensible than most businesses your size. So pull out your written information security policy, if you have one. Read it all. And most of them are not all that long. Some of the DoD compliance frameworks can be quite long, but other ones, 25, 30 pages, something like that. And then, pull out of that every control it claims you have. For each control right next to it, do we actually do this? Yes, no, I don't know. It's that straightforward.
Right. But for every not sure, make sure you assign someone to verify within, say, 2 weeks, 14 days, and get a yes or no. That way, the no is more not sure by the end of month 1.
Yeah. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with no. Well, I mean, you want to do it, right? but knowing if it's yes or no is way more important at this stage.
Right.
And then, at the end of 30 days, you have a map. You will not like the map, probably. That's fine. That's why we're doing this.
Right. So the next 30 days, we'll fix the worst 3, right? Pick the 3 biggest gaps. Not all of them, just 3.
3 may turn out to be enough. Why 3? Because anything more, and you won't actually do it or complete it. 3 is achievable in 30 days, even with everybody's day job.
Right. And usually the top 3 is the MFA hardening, access review, and the backup test.
The last 2 are always on the list.
Those are the gaps that show up most often in real findings, and they're pretty cheap to fix.
I mean, the larger scale of things,
Right.
yeah, it's not horrible. So when you get all that put together, rewrite the relevant sections of the policy to reflect what's actually running now. The policy should describe a reality, not aspiration.
Right. And then put your next review on the calendar. Next access review, next backup test, next vendor due diligence cycle.
Right.
Compliance is more of a cadence, not really a project.
Yeah. Actual compliance is something that happens
On a regular.
Yeah, on the regular. Then brief your leadership team in writing. This is crucial. Leadership has to be apprised of this, and they have to buy in. Otherwise, it's just a go-to-the-wall fight every time. They have to view it as important. So, 2 pages, 3 pages, just a status report. They don't need to know that, well, we really need to upgrade this product so it's phishing resistant. They just need to know they're not compliant. At some point, they're going to want a suggestion and a budget, something like that. But they need to know that it either is or is not happening. So, 2 things if this hits close to home. First, comment baseline on the LinkedIn post for this episode, and we'll send you our 5 control compliance baseline. It's a 1-page checklist that maps the 5 controls to the evidence that you need to prove that this is happening. And it's free. We'll send it to you just for the asking. Second, if you want a deeper read on where your business actually stands, book a free 30-minute review. There will be a link on the YouTube video. Jessica, is that where we're publishing that? Is that going to go to YouTube? Okay, yeah. So there will be a link in the YouTube write-up so you can book a free 30-minute review with us. I'll tell you honestly which one you have and which ones you don't. No pitch. It's just, it's straight up. It is what it is.
Right. And the usual ask, if this episode landed for you, send it to one peer.
Yeah.
The owner of a business, COO, or operations leader in your network who quietly worries about these things, like me.
Right.
That's how the show grows. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's our job to worry at the end of the day. That's what we do.
is.
So the next show, we'll have a surprise guest here and have a discussion about downtime and what that impact is for a small business. It'll be super insightful. This person has run their business for, 15 or 20 years. Not as long as us, but a long time anyways. Thanks for your time.